If you know anything about India's telecom sector, it is probably this that the space is mostly shaped by the war between Airtel and Reliance Jio. Despite arriving late to the game, Jio emerged as the dominant player. Airtel's overall subscriber base is still nearly 80 million less than Jio's. But the fight continues, and the newest battleground between the two is financial services. Airtel already has two thriving ventures. The first one is the 7-year-old Airtel Payments Bank, which happens to be one of the three profitable payments banks in the country. And the second one is a new financial entity called Airtel Finance, which is mainly aimed at Reliance Jio's latest disruptor, Jio Financial Services. The 1-year-old Airtel Finance has already serviced loans worth $300 million. So it seems to be doing pretty well. In fact, just last month, in an earnings call, the Airtel boss Gopal Vittal talked about how Airtel Finance was shaping up really well. He said it served over 400,000 car and loan products in the financial year 2024. The story is similar with Airtel Payments Bank. It registered its highest ever annual revenue of more than $250 million in FY24 and also grew its deposits by 50% from the year ago level. The bank has been adding nearly a million new customers every single month. Now, all of this comes at a time when India's other fintech companies are struggling with profitability. On the other side, apart from the fact that Jio is still leading, there is one thing that still sets Airtel and Jio apart from each other. Jio Financial Services focuses on lending to business players and engaging in asset management services. Airtel, meanwhile, is taking a different path. The company is using the oldest tool it has, which is SIM cards, to partner with lenders for consumer centric products like loans and credit cards. But why SIM cards? The answer lies in Airtel's nearly 30-year-old distribution network. Welcome to Daybreak, a business podcast from the Ken. I'm your host Nigdha Sharma, and I don't chase the news cycle. Instead, every day of the week, my colleague Rahel Philippos and I will come to you with one business story that is worth understanding and worth your time. Today is Thursday, the 20th of June. When Airtel started to make its foray into financial services with its payments bank in 2017, it had zero experience with banking. Plus, running a payments bank comes with a whole bunch of regulations. For starters, a payments bank cannot give out loans directly, so there's no interest income. And deposit account balances cannot be more than 2 lakh rupees. It is a low margin business that only makes sense economically if its scale is big enough. But Airtel went for it heads on. And the main thing that gave it this kind of confidence at the time were its nearly 300 million mobile subscribers. It wanted to have a larger share of their wallets, which is why it chose to go digital. No checkbooks, passbooks, or physical branches. It decided to use its SIM card distributors, mainly the Kirana and retail store owners, as its army of business correspondents. The idea was to reduce the cost of acquisition and convince subscribers that their telecom operator was trustworthy enough to keep their deposits safe. Like an employee from another payments bank told my colleague, the Ken reporter Ronak Kumar Gunjan, Airtel basically took its financial services product to its existing mobile subscribers. It did not have to spend money and time on marketing itself. To establish solid trust amongst its users and also to make it more convenient for them, Airtel decided to keep a user's account number the same as their Airtel mobile number. But here's the thing. Despite all of this, including the low cost of acquiring customers, Airtel was still only managing to make a profit of 2.5 rupees on every 100 rupees of revenue. Plus, RBI rules came in the way. Other payments banks with ambitions can eventually grow to become small finance banks. But a larger corporation like Airtel running a payments bank, it is not allowed to own a small finance bank. And that is when Airtel began looking for a product that would bring it higher margins and help it reach its financial services ambitions. Stay tuned for more on this. About a year ago, Airtel decided to set up Airtel Finance. It was created as a credit scoring platform with additional capabilities for digital collections. But what makes it special? Again, SIM cards. My colleague Ronak explained it really well. He said you can think of it this way. Currently, more than 400 million Airtel SIM cards are acting as individual data sources for the company. Though telecom operators are not really allowed to read a subscriber's messages, the company has a more than a fair estimation of a user's financial and online habits. For example, Airtel can categorize its users based on a bunch of things like their geography, how frequently they shop online, their relationship with a certain bank, their habit of paying EMIs, and so on and so forth. Now, imagine how important all of this information could be for a lender. All a lender needs to do is tell Airtel its target customer group, and Airtel can find out all the relevant information. In exchange, Airtel will obviously charge a fee. And what makes Airtel a formidable entity in this space is the richness and the size of its data pool. Think of the more than 400 million Airtel SIM cards. So, how exactly does this all work? An Airtel executive explained it to us. Now, let's imagine a non-banking financial company or NBFC like, say, Bajaj Finance or Aditya Birla Finance wants to target users in Lucknow who bank with a certain bank. These users have a certain pattern of shopping at an e-commerce company and they have devices worth over 30,000 rupees. Based on inputs from its super rich data infrastructure, Airtel Finance will facilitate the loan transactions between the NBFC and the customer. An Axis Bank executive told Ronak how the amount of telco data Airtel has is quite unbelievable, and its combination with industry data makes it an extremely rich source. Thanks to its year-and-a-half-long partnership with the telco, Axis Bank has been able to give out nearly 200,000 credit cards so far. While the Axis Bank executive did not speak about the future propositions, they said that the bank is pretty satisfied with Airtel. Airtel Finance also helps NBFCs and banks in servicing loans by sending payment reminders and calling borrowers in cases of defaults. So, let us look at this enviable data infrastructure that Airtel has built. It has actually been in the works for a while now. The company was convinced that it was rich enough only in the first half of 2022. And then the leadership ideated an internal 3-layer strategy for all its products. Number 1, the foundational or the data layer. Number 2, the experience layer. And number 3, the services layer. The senior Airtel executive told us that Airtel essentially created a data lake called the data platform. Then it made it customizable by feeding it with machine and artificial learning, analytics, cataloging, etc. And it is now using it for specific industries. But let us not forget, Airtel is not allowed to use any of this data for its payments bank business, which is why it has created a clear wall between the telco and the payments bank. But Airtel Finance, the Ken found out, will be Airtel's core in the near future. And who knows, maybe it will leave Jio Financials behind. But ultimately, it all depends on how it uses the good old SIM card.
Daybreak is produced from the newsroom of the Ken, India's first subscriber-focused business news platform. What you're listening to is just a small sample of our subscriber-only offerings. A full subscription unlocks daily long-form feature stories, newsletters, and podcast extras. To subscribe, head to theken.com and click on the red subscribe button on top of the Ken website. Today's episode was hosted by Snigdha Sharma and edited by Rajiv CN.